This video here is to address a very important matter at hand, especially at Straightway Truth Ministry, and it can be applied to other ministries where you have a leader who says that they're a Israelite or are Israel, and thanks to a undisclosed individual that I will not mention, but if they get the hint, 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 they will know who I'm referring to. Due credit for what they have done in sharing this, and most importantly, praises, glory, appreciation, and the baraka belongs unto Yahweh. For all that He's done, and is still doing right now, even making a way where there is no way. So this verse right here, Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 15, using a easy English version that was just up here in the middle of nowhere, it helps so that you cannot miss it. This speaks about when the people go into the land and they decide they want a king, then it says right here at the words following, if that happens, you must only accept a king that is from Yahweh, your Elohim, that He chooses. So, who are these kings, these priests, these preachers, pastors, apostles, prophets, elders, deacons, and such, when the Father has not chosen nor appointed them, but they appointed themselves, and show their fruits following by their carnality, by their carnal ways, by their heathenism? Choose a king, and based on other translations, choose a ruler, a leader, someone who practices leadership, righteous authority from among your own people, not from the Ashkenaz, not from the American institutions, not from the European Union, not from China, not from Africa, definitely not from Pakistan, especially not from India, and so forth, from your own people, from other Israelites. Do not choose anyone who is not an Israelite. In other words, your leader who is going to be over other Israelites, fiscal Israelites who are born again of the Ruach HaKodesh, they are supposed to have another Israelite who is supposed to practice the quote-unquote chain of command and the righteous authority submitted unto the Father. So you're supposed to have a righteous judge, or a righteous elder, or a righteous teacher, righteous preacher, righteous pastor, righteous moray, righteous elder, righteous prophet, righteous apostle, and as such, the so forth, who are supposed to practice righteous leadership among the group, among the congregation, and them who are supposed to have the Ruach HaKodesh, they are supposed to know how to operate and function and lead, as well as where needed, receive prayer, so that they can walk the more so after the Ruach HaKodesh and not after the flesh. Then it warns over here, do not choose, or in instructs, tells, do not choose anyone who is not an Israelite. So in other words, if they look brown, they look melanated, it helps to have some history behind them, all the way back to the third father before them. Their father, then their grandfather, and at least their great grandfather. Their grandfather's fault, their granddad's dad. In other words, to verify that they're an Israelites, and not because of their brown skin. You have some of these ninjas out here who are part of Psalm 83 that want to perpetuate the curses of Deuteronomy 28 so that they can use the Israelites like chattel slaves and enrich themselves like plantation owners. So they want to come in the body or among the people or present themselves as Israel to lure as many as they can into their hands to abuse and use them while quoting a bunch of scriptures and present themselves as if they're Israel when they are not. They do not have the Father's Spirit. They do not have the Ruach HaKodesh. And they especially act like the demons that come from these other nations, like Ishmaelites, like $5 Indians, like Hamites, like some of these other mulattoes who are low-key Caucasians, who are low-key as well, sellouts and so forth. It helps to get their pedigree, their background, so that you know individuals like Charles L. Jr., if he really is Israel, or if he's just a European with hue, with melanin to his skin. When you find out those who are like that, such as Charles L. Jr., whose dad was an Irishman, or at least their granddad was an Irishman. That's rough. That means the second generation being an Irishman disqualifies him from being an Israelite, a quote-unquote blood-born Israelite. So in that, what's being communicated is that when you find out that your priest, your pastor, your shepherd, whoever leader you have over you, or the group, or the congregation, if you find out that they are not Israelites, especially to the third generation, that means you have to expect them, and if they find out to be of another nation, to the even to the second generation. So if you have three full dads before you who are not Israelites, that means that individual should not be over you. And if they are using cult-like tactics, intimidation, coercion, and all sorts of demonic oppression and the such, that means you have to get away from them, separate, because they are not of his. They are not one of his. So in the whole process, when you find out there's been a heathen in the pulpit, a stranger, a foreigner, or even sitting in the chair of the seats, teaching the body of Israelites, and they even want to try to go so far as to try to have you to pay them tithes, to let them boast themselves as Israel, even going so far as to boast over the branches. Get away from them as soon as possible, and if you can, remove them from your environment. If you can, have the control over the environment. So the multitude of you, get rid of that deceiver, that pretender, that Decepticon. That heathen who is using your heritage, you actual Israelites, born again of the Ruach Kodesh too, especially, first and foremost, using your heritage just to do a bunch of witchcraft, to devour and take the baraka of Yahweh that belongs to you, as shown through Deuteronomy 28. If you keep his law, statutes, commandments, they want to take what belongs to you and speak curses, death, hell, destruction, and such unto you. In return, they want to try to cut you off from the body of his son, just so that they can soak up, siphon, and absorb as much of the benefits that they can before they go to everlasting perdition, to everlasting punishments. You get rid of them or get away from them and pray so that wherever they try to take from you, even try to destiny swap and drain you for your energy, that you retrieve it back. Such individuals, such as Charles Dollar Jr., who's got ancestry of Irish instead of Israel, within their 3 recent dads before them, that disqualifies them from being a quote-unquote Israelite, especially from operating in the role of a preacher, as a pastor, as a so-called quote-unquote, what they like to call themselves, shepherd, and all these other titles that they give themselves. That disqualifies him from leading Straightway Truth Ministry. And there's others out here too who can be tested and proven to see if they're legit, or that they disqualify themselves either by physical doings or by spiritual fruit, such as Olim, Yael, Kohen, Olim, Yael, Eyal ben Ephraim ben Yisraelah, Big Judah, and the rest of these pretenders, especially those Hebrew camps, such as IUIC, JOCC, Sakari, and so forth, they need to know if their leadership is Israelites, even far back as three generations behind them, before them, so that they can show and prove it and verify that they are Israel legitimately, and that they are not only spiritually but also physically prepared to take on another or a potential Ishaya, potential wife or concubine, to have underneath them in their household or their headship. You need to know those who labor among you, especially these so-called leaders who want to use a whole bunch of clout, saying that they did this, they did that, and look at how great my good works are. Look at how great my measure of righteousness is. And you start to find out heathens talk like that. And to a degree, mannered Gentiles speak like that too. And yet you have those devils such as Charles Stout Jr., who's getting up there in the pulpit pretending and faking to keep as many up underneath them in bondage and control, manipulation, and as such to drain them up of their finances, energy, and what belongs to them. And so when they're done using people up, they can kick them to the curb and go find someone else. That is high level of wickedness, especially to hide it behind the priesthood, to hide it behind a pastoralship, to hide it behind a calling, whether either it being legitimate or not. All you can do at least is shake your head and get away from those individuals, and if possible, get rid of them, put them out, move them from the fellowship, the gathering, and so forth. That way, you do not become partakers of their wicked ways, nor have to deal with them when judging them accordingly is dealt with. To keep as many possible informed and ready for what's ahead of them. To get away from those false ministers and potentially be transferred to or sit up underneath one of them who have good intentions and they do not mean any wickedness. Because with those who are actually Israelites, even to the third generation, as long as they're keeping the righteous fruit, then they could be potential candidates too as righteous leadership.